You sold your life. You did it years ago, and you've been paying the installments every single morning since, without once stopping to renegotiate the price. Let me lay the deal out plainly, because it is possible nobody ever has. You take the one thing you cannot make more of, which is time, the actual hours of the only life you are ever going to get, and you hand them to someone else in exchange for money. Then you spend most of that money on things that help you recover just enough to go back and hand over more hours. That is the arrangement. That is the loop. You are inside it right now. You will be inside it again tomorrow, and the alarm is already set. And here's the part that would have fascinated Albert Camus, the part that is genuinely strange when you look straight at it. You do not experience this as horror. You experience it as normal. You call it being responsible. You call it adulthood. You will defend it if someone questions it. Most people will defend with real heat the exact arrangement that is quietly eating them, because the alternative, looking at it directly, feels unbearable. So this is a video about looking at it directly, not to make you quit, not to sell you an escape hatch or a passive income dream or a one-way ticket to a beach. Camus had nothing but contempt for the people selling escapes, and so do I. This is about seeing the deal you actually made, clearly, with the anesthetic switched off, because Camus believed that seeing it clearly is the only thing that ever gives you real power over it. And I'm going to show you exactly how the arrangement eats a human life, not vaguely, specifically. There are 9 ways, and I'm going to name every one of them. And by the end, you're going to recognize at least a few of them as the water you've been swimming in your whole adult life without ever seeing it. 9 ways your job eats your life. And then, because I'm not going to leave you standing in the dark, what Camus said you can actually do while still holding the rock. Because there is a rock. Let me tell you about it before we start counting, because you are living inside this story and you probably do not know it has a name. There was a man called Sisyphus. The gods wanted to punish him, and they were creative. No fire, no torture. They gave him a task. He had to push a boulder up a mountain, and every time he got it near the top, the boulder rolled back down, and he walked down after it and started again. Forever. No finish line, no reward, no day off. Just the rock, the hill, and the next rock, the next hill, until the end of time. Most people hear that and call it the most depressing thing they've ever heard. Camus heard it and wrote one of the strangest sentences in all of philosophy. He said, "We must imagine Sisyphus happy." People think that's a paradox or a professor being clever. It's neither, because Camus was not describing a Greek myth. He was describing your Monday. The wake up, the commute, the same tasks, the same meetings, the boulder that rolls back to the bottom every single evening so you can push it up again tomorrow. He was describing the job, your job, the one you're going back to. The gap between what we're promised by all that pushing and what we actually get, Camus called the absurd. It's the distance between how badly a human being needs the effort to mean something and how completely the arrangement refuses to pay out. You want the rock to be worth it. The mountain does not care about you. It never did. Before I start counting the 9, I want to be fair, because a stupid version of this video would tell you work is a scam and you should quit and go find yourself. And that is not what Camus thought, and it is not what I think. Work is not the enemy. A person needs something to do with their hands and their hours. Pure idleness is not freedom. It is just a different flavor of empty. A job pays for the food and the roof and the people you love, and there is nothing shameful in any of that. Providing is not a con. Showing up for people who depend on you is not weakness. It is one of the few genuinely noble things a person does. I am not going to stand here and pretend otherwise. The problem was never that you work. The problem is what you were told the work was for, and what it quietly takes while you're not looking. So let me show you what it takes. All 9. There is a woman who wakes at 5:40 every morning to the same 3-note alarm. And in the half second before she's fully conscious, before she remembers who she is, there's a flicker of dread. And she has felt it so many thousands of mornings that she no longer registers it as dread. She thinks it is just what mornings feel like. She showers in the dark so she does not wake the kids. She drinks the coffee standing up. She kisses 2 sleeping foreheads and drives 40 minutes in traffic that has worn a groove in her. And by the time she sits down at her desk, she has already given the first 2 hours of her day to the job. And none of those 2 hours will appear on any timesheet. And she will do this again tomorrow. and she has never once, not a single time in 11 years, added up what those unpaid morning hours come to across a life. Nobody ever taught her to count them, so she does not. Number 1. Your time stopped being yours and you stopped noticing it was ever yours in the first place. Look at a single actual day. You wake to an alarm you did not want, set for a time you did not choose, for a place you have to be. The very first conscious act of your day is obedience to a schedule that is not yours. You get ready inside a hurry that belongs to the job. You travel on your own time, unpaid, to arrive at the exact moment the arrangement decides your day begins. And then for 8, 9, 10 hours, the most alert and most capable version of you, the one with the most energy and the clearest head, belongs to somebody else. They get your peak. The people you say you actually live for get the leftovers, the tired version, the evening scraps, the you that is already dreading tomorrow's alarm. Sit with that distribution honestly, because almost nobody does. The best hours of your best years go to the thing you would stop doing tomorrow if the money arrived some other way. And the people you would genuinely die for get you depleted, half present, on the couch, running on empty. Camus is not telling you to be angry about this. Anger is just another way of not looking. He is telling you to see it, to count it, because a thing you have never counted is a thing you can never choose. Most people go their whole lives and never once sit down and work out whose the hours actually are.
So here is the first honest question, and do not reach for the flattering answer. In the last 7 days, how many of your good hours, the alert ones with real energy in them, went to something you actually chose, not what was left over at the end, the good ones? If the number frightens you, that fear is just the anesthetic starting to wear off. Sit in it for a second before we go on. And here is a second one, because the theft of your time is not only in the obvious hours. Think about the invisible ones. The Sunday evening that is technically yours but is already ruined, already tense, already colonized by the Monday coming. The dinner where your body is at the table but your mind is drafting an email. The holiday you finally took where it took you 4 days just to stop reaching for the phone, and by the time you had actually unclenched, it was time to go back. The job does not only take the hours you are at work, it takes a wide gray border around them. The wind down you cannot do, the dread of the morning, the low hum of the unfinished thing. And if you counted those hours too, the real number, the true cost, would not just frighten you, it would grieve you. There was a man who calculated once, on the back of an envelope, that if he added the commute and the getting ready and the Sunday dread and the evening decompression, his 40-hour week was closer to 60. And he never did the calculation again, because once was enough, and some arithmetic you can only afford to do a single time. A man is at a party, a good one, people he half knows, a drink in his hand. Someone turns to him and asks, "So what do you do?" And without a flicker of hesitation, before any other thought can arrive, he says his job title. That is his answer to the question of who he is. Later, much later, in the car on the way home, his wife asks him something small and he cannot answer it because a comment his manager made on Thursday is still running in his head, a 9-word comment, and it has followed him into the weekend and into the car and now into this conversation with the person he loves. And he is not really here. He's back at the desk, being weighed, being found slightly wanting, and the evening dissolves around a sentence a man who does not know his children's names said in passing 3 days ago. Number 2. You slowly became the job. It stopped being something you do and turned into something you are. Watch what happens when a stranger asks who you are. The first thing out of your mouth is what you do for money. Not what you love, not what you are curious about, not who you are to the people who actually know you. Your function, the thing the arrangement needs from you, became your answer to the question of your own identity, and you did not even notice the substitution happen. And it goes deeper than the introduction. It goes into your sense of your own worth. You have good days and bad days at work, and watch how a bad one does not stay at work. It follows you home. It sits down at your dinner table. A rough review, a project that collapsed, one offhand comment from a manager, and suddenly you are not just someone who did badly at a task, you are a lesser kind of person, and you carry that into the night and into the bed and into tomorrow. Your worth got welded to your output. Good output, you are allowed to feel like a person. Bad output, you are not. There is a sharp absurdity buried in that. You are treating a role as if it were your soul. The job is a mask the arrangement handed you, a useful one, but you forgot you were wearing it, and now you're afraid to take it off because you are no longer certain there is a face underneath.
So the second question, if your job vanished tomorrow, no money worry, just gone, how much of you would be left? Be honest. If the answer is not much, that is not because you are empty. It is because you let one role eat all the others. And the others are still in there, just starved. And watch how early it starts and how completely it takes over. There was a boy who loved three things: drawing, and the woods behind his house, and taking apart radios to see inside them. Nobody asked him what he did for a living because he was 9, and the question would have been absurd. Now he is 43, and if you ask him who he is, he will tell you his function and his sector and his years of experience. And the drawing stopped at 19, and he has not been in the woods in a decade, and the last radio he opened was so long ago he has forgotten the specific joy of it, the particular pleasure of a thing coming apart in your hands to reveal its logic. None of it died in a dramatic moment. It was crowded out, one demand at a time, by the single role that pays, until the wide, strange child with 3 loves had been sanded down into one job title. And he calls that growing up. And in a sense it is, but it is worth asking what exactly we agreed to call growth. There is someone who got the promotion, the one they had wanted for 2 years, the one they told themselves would finally be enough. They announced it in a 5-minute meeting, and there was a small round of applause, and that evening there was a bottle of something good. And for about a week it was real, and then, so quietly they almost missed it, the new title became simply the air they breathed, the ordinary fact of their Tuesday, and their eyes drifted, without permission, to the next rung, the one above, the one that would finally be enough. And a cold little thought arrived that they pushed down fast, which was that they had felt this exact feeling before, at the last rung and the one before that, and that the feeling of arrival had never once in their entire life lasted. Number 3, they convinced you the endless pushing is not a trap, it is ambition, and they got you to hold the whip yourself. This is the modern refinement, and Camus saw the very beginning of it. The old arrangement needed someone standing over you with a whip. The new one does not, because it moved the whip inside you. You do not need a boss demanding more anymore. You demand more of yourself. You answer the message at 9 at night. You feel guilty resting. You turned your own hours off the clock into a second shift of worrying about the clock, and nobody made you do it. You volunteered because you were taught that this is exactly what a good, driven, serious person does. And the reward for hitting the target is never rest. It is a new target. You know this. You have lived it. You wanted the position, you got the position, and the satisfaction lasted about a week before it quietly became the new baseline and your eyes drifted to the next rung. The rock reached the top and rolled straight back to the bottom, and you, breathing hard, went down after it and called that drive. This is Sisyphus told the mountain is a career ladder and believing, this time, that the top is real. There has always been another rock. There was never a version where you arrive, dust off your hands, and are finally allowed to live.
So the third question, and this one stings. Picture the exact thing you are working toward right now. The promotion, the number, the milestone. Now imagine you have it, fully, today. Be honest about what happens next inside you. If the answer is that you would immediately start wanting the next thing, you have just watched the trap operate in real time. The wanting was never going to stop at the top, because the wanting is the whole machine. And the cruelest version of this happens to the people who actually make it. There's a name for the feeling, and the people who reach the summit describe it in almost identical words. The corner office, the number they once wrote on a scrap of paper as an impossible dream, now real, now sitting in the account. The recognition, the title, the thing that was supposed to be the arrival. And they describe standing at the top of the mountain they gave 30 years to and feeling a flat, quiet dread, because there is no top, there was never a top, and now they are here, and the wanting is not stopped. It is simply run out of things to point at, and that is somehow worse. The poor man at least has the fantasy that the money would fix it. The rich man has the corpse of that fantasy and has to look at it every morning. There is no more brutal proof that the reward was a lie than the face of someone who got the whole reward and is still, unmistakably, not free. A man gets a free Saturday, genuinely free, nothing scheduled, the rarest thing he owns. And by 10 in the morning he is deeply uncomfortable, though he could not tell you why. And by 11, he has invented a task, a small, pointless errand, something with a beginning and an end, and he does it with relief, real relief, and tells himself he is being productive. What he is actually doing is running, because in the empty hours a question had started to surface, quiet at first, the one about whether any of this is the life he meant to be living, and the errand made it go away, and he will never connect the errand to the fear, because he has spent 20 years making sure the two never meet. Number 4, the busyness is not just tiring, it is an anesthetic, and it is keeping you from feeling your own life pass. This is the deepest function of the whole arrangement, and almost nobody names it out loud. Being busy is not only exhausting, it is comfortable, because as long as you are pushing the rock, you never have to face the question sitting underneath everything, which is, what am I actually doing with the one life I get? The busyness fills every silence where that question might surface. Wake, push, collapse, sleep, wake, and the years slide by smooth and featureless because you never once stopped long enough to feel a single one of them land. People do this on purpose, though they will never admit it. The person most afraid of their own life is often the one who fills it most completely with work, so there is no room left to look at it. They call it being productive. It is closer to hiding. So the 4th question, when did you last sit in a silence with no task in it and let yourself actually feel your own life passing? Not scrolling, not resting so you can work again, just present and a little unbearably awake. If you cannot remember, the busyness has been doing its real job, and its real job was never the work. And notice how the world has organized itself to make sure the silence never comes. There was never a moment in human history when it was easier to avoid your own mind. The phone in your pocket was built by some of the most talented people alive for exactly one purpose: to fill the gap before you feel it. The queue, the elevator, the 90 seconds waiting for the kettle, the moment your partner leaves the room, every one of them used to be a small window where a real thought might form, and now every one of them is filled, instantly, automatically, before the thought can even begin. A woman noticed once that she could not make it from her front door to her car, a distance of maybe 40 feet, without taking the phone out. 40 feet. She tried it as an experiment, phone in pocket, just to see, and the discomfort in those few seconds of unfilled walking told her something she did not want to know, which is that she had not been alone with herself, truly alone, not for years. A woman is called into a meeting on a Tuesday, and in 9 minutes it is done. The role she held for 14 years, the thing she introduced herself as, the reason she got up in the morning, revoked, gently, with real regret in the voice of a person who barely knows her. Her badge stops working before she reaches the parking lot. And sitting in her car, she is not crying about the money yet. That comes later. What has hollowed her out in this exact moment is the discovery that the thing she thought was her life was a lease the whole time. And the lease is up, and she is not sure, sitting there in the silent car, who she is now that the title is gone. She had been renting herself from them, and she never knew it. Number 5, you are renting your identity from an employer who can evict you with 2 weeks' notice. Think about how much of who you are right now is on loan. The title you introduce yourself with, the routine that shapes your entire week, the colleagues who make up most of your daily human contact, the sense of purpose you get from being needed at 9 every morning. Now notice something terrifying. Almost none of it is yours. It can all be revoked in a single meeting by a person who does not know your children's names. People discover this in the cruelest way at a layoff, when the badge stops working and the email cuts off, and they realize that the structure they mistook for their life was actually just a lease, and the lease is up, and she is not sure, sitting there in the silent car, who she is now that the title is gone. She had been renting herself from them, and she never knew it. Camus would say the absurd here is that you built your house on ground you do not own and then called it security. Real security was never going to come from a thing that can be taken from you by someone else's decision. It has to come from something they cannot repossess. So the 5th question, strip away the title, the routine, the colleagues, the borrowed purpose. What is left that is actually yours, that no meeting could ever take? If that list is short, that is the most important thing this video will show you, because that short list is the only part of you that was ever truly free. And the people who learn this lesson early, by accident, are strangely lucky, though it never feels like luck at the time. There's a man who was let go at 34, brutally, with no warning, and who spent about 6 months in the particular darkness of not knowing who he was without the badge. But somewhere in that darkness, because he had no title to hide behind, he was forced to build something that was actually his. A skill nobody could revoke, a sense of worth that did not depend on a manager's mood, a small, solid core that belonged to him and not to any company. Years later, secure again, he said the layoff was the best thing that ever happened to him, not because unemployment is good, it is not, but because it tore away the rented identity while he was still young enough to build a real one underneath. Most people never get that gift. They rent the whole way to the end, and only discover the lease was a lease when the eviction comes at 65 and there is no time left to build anything of their own. There is a man in his 50s in a specialist's waiting room, and he can afford to be there. He made sure of that. Decades of long hours and skipped lunches and sleep sacrificed to early alarms built the account that pays for this appointment. And the thing he is here to treat, the doctor will gently explain, was built by exactly those decades. The stress that never switched off, the years in the chair, the body kept on a quiet alert by deadline after deadline until it forgot how to stand down. He spent the health to earn the money, and now he will spend the money trying to buy back the health. And somewhere in the waiting room it occurs to him, dimly, that he has been running in a circle his whole life and calling it a straight line. Number 6. You are trading your health now for money you will spend trying to buy back later. This is the oldest and most obvious trick, and we fall for it anyway, every generation, without fail. The stress that never fully switches off, the sitting hour after hour, year after year, the sleep sacrificed to the alarm, the meals eaten fast at a desk, the body kept in a low, constant state of alert by a threat that is not a lion but a deadline and does not know the difference. And what is it for? So that decades from now, if you are lucky, you can afford the treatments, the specialists, the recovery from precisely the damage the work is doing to you right now, today, while you listen to this. You are spending your health to earn money to repair your health. Read that sentence again slowly, because it is the actual shape of the deal. And stated plainly, it is insane, and we have all quietly agreed not to state it plainly. There is no version where you get the years back. The body keeps the bill. And the arrangement is counting on you being too busy pushing the rock to ever add it up. So the 6th question. What is your body currently paying, right now, this week, for money you are planning to spend on your body later? Name it. The knot in your shoulders is a receipt. The sleep you are not getting is a receipt. Read the receipts. And the arrangement has a way of hiding the bill until it is too large to pay. It does not send you a warning at the halfway point. There is no letter that says, "You have now spent 40% of your available health. Please adjust." The body absorbs it quietly, silently, year after year, the cortisol and the sitting and the short nights. And it says nothing until one day it says everything, all at once, in a doctor's office or an emergency room. And the bill that arrives is the whole bill, with interest, and it is not payable in money. There is a woman who worked through every warning her body sent her, the headaches, the exhaustion, the chest that felt tight on Sunday nights, because the deadline was real and the mortgage was real, and there was always a reason to push through one more week. The body kept the tally the whole time. It always does. It is the one creditor that cannot be negotiated with and never forgets a debt. A couple has a list, the things they will do later, the trip, the house by the water, the slower mornings, the version of their life that begins once the pushing is done. They have had this list for 30 years. The list got them through a great deal, and the items on it have quietly changed, retirement pushed back, the trip postponed again, the someday drifting a little further out each year like a horizon that keeps its exact distance no matter how hard you walk toward it. One of them is now not well, and the list is still a list, and they are beginning to understand, without saying it out loud to each other, that the someday they were saving the real living for was never a real place, and that the saving was the living, and they spent it on waiting. Number 7, you postponed your actual life to a later that is engineered never to arrive. This is the great lie the whole arrangement is built on, and it is so common we stopped hearing it. Work hard now, sacrifice now, and later there is the reward, security, retirement, the version of your life that finally begins once the pushing is done. Later.
Always later. You organized your one existence around a later that retreats like the horizon every single time you walk toward it. And you have watched the later move your whole life. I will be happy when I finish school, when I land the job, when the debt is gone, when the kids are grown, when I retire. The finish line is never a place. It is a thing your own mind keeps quietly relocating, because the moment you reach it, it needs a new one to chase. And you can do this for 50 years and arrive at the actual end, the real end, still convinced the good part was just about to begin, right around the next corner, right after this one last thing. Camus was blunt about this. The later is bait. There is no top of the mountain where the rock finally stays put and you are released. You've been promised a top that does not exist, and you build your whole life around the wait. So the seventh question, and it is the heaviest one. What specifically are you currently waiting to start living for? Name the later you are aimed at. Now ask, honestly, what evidence you have that it will be any different from every earlier later that already came and went and changed nothing. The waiting is the wasted part. The waiting is the part you will regret. And the horizon has a specific cruelty, which is that it recedes at exactly your walking speed, so you never notice it moving. You were going to start really living at 30, and then 30 came and you were building the foundation, so it became 40 when things would be stable. 40 came and there were the kids, so it became 50 when they would be grown. And each time the horizon moved, you did not experience it as a broken promise. You experienced it as reasonable, as responsible, as just one more sensible postponement. And that's the trap, that every individual delay is defensible, and the sum of them is a life. There was an old man who was asked near the end what he would do differently, and he did not say he would have worked less exactly. He said he would have stopped waiting. He spent the whole thing in the waiting room of his own life, certain the real appointment was about to be called, and it never was, because he was the only one who could have called it, and he kept deferring to a later that was never going to arrive, on its own. All day a woman is patient, warm, funny, generous, endlessly composed, for clients, for colleagues, for a manager she is not even sure she respects. She performs the very best version of herself for 8 hours for people who are, in the end, paying for it. And then she comes home with nothing left in the tank, and her own child asks her something at the wrong moment, and she snaps, a small, sharp thing, and sees the little face fall, and hates herself, and is too depleted to fix it properly. The best of her went to strangers. The leftovers went to the one person who will remember how she made them feel long after every client has forgotten her name. Number 8. You gave the job your best relationships and handed the people you love your worst self. Look at who actually gets the good version of you, the patient version, the funny version, the composed and generous one. That version goes to clients, to colleagues, to a manager you may not even respect. You performed your best self all day for people who are paying for it, and then you come home running on nothing, and the people who matter most in the entire world get whatever is left, which is often the short temper, the distracted nod, the half-listening while your mind is still back at the desk. There is a nurse who spent years with people in their final weeks and wrote down what they regretted at the end. Almost none of it was about work. Nobody wished they had spent more hours at the office. The regrets that came up over and over were two: that they had lived the life other people expected instead of the one that was true to them, and that they had let their friendships and their closeness fade while they were busy. When the distractions are finally stripped away and the time runs out, the only thing left standing is the connections you built, or the ones you were too tired and too busy to build. So the 8th question, the people you say you would die for, did they get your best hours this week, or your leftover ones? And if it was the leftovers, as it is for almost everyone, how many more weeks of leftovers do you actually think you have? And children keep a ledger you cannot see and do not get to audit. A man worked long and hard and told himself it was all for them, the house, the school, the security, and it was true, and it was also the story he needed so he did not have to feel the cost. And his daughter grew up, and years later, grown, she did not remember the house or the school or the security. She remembered that he was tired. She remembered the top of his head bent over a laptop. She remembered learning, early, not to interrupt because he was always working, always, and it was always important. He gave her a childhood of provision, and she remembers a childhood of his absence, and both of those are true at once, and that is the particular heartbreak of it. That he was not a bad father, he was a present father who was never actually present. And by the time he understood the difference, she was grown, and the account was closed, and the deposits he meant to make could not be made retroactively. A man is alone in his house for an evening. No one home, no plans, and the silence is total. And within about 4 minutes, he has the television on, not because he wants to watch anything, but because the quiet had begun to feel like pressure, like something rising. And in that silence, a set of questions had started to lift their heads. Whether he is happy, whether this is the life he meant, whether the people around him are the ones he chose, or just the ones who were there. And the noise pushed them back down, where they live, where they wait, and he exhaled without knowing he had been holding his breath and told himself he just likes having the TV on. He does not like having the TV on. He is afraid of what the silence says.
Number 9, and this is the one underneath all the others. You accepted the terror of the empty moment as normal, and that fear is the leash they hold you with. Here is the deepest mechanism, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Why do you fill every silence? Why does the empty Sunday feel so uncomfortable that you invent a task to escape it? Why does stillness, real stillness with nothing to do in it, feel almost like a threat? Because in the silence, the questions catch up. Are you happy? Is this the life you wanted or the one that simply happened to you while you were busy? Are the people around you the ones you chose? Do you even like who you have become? Those questions only surface in the quiet, so you have learned, without ever deciding to never allow the quiet. And that is the leash. The arrangement does not need chains because it has your own fear of stillness doing the work. A person who cannot bear to sit alone with their own life for 15 minutes will accept almost any amount of busyness to avoid it, and will call that acceptance a career. Camus points straight at the way out, and it is not comfortable. You cannot fully own a person who has genuinely accepted they are going to die. The fear of the empty moment was always really the fear of the ending it reminds you of. Feel the ending, truly feel it, and the empty moment stops being a threat and becomes the most honest thing you have, and the leash owes slack in your hand. So the 9th question, the last one before we talk about what to do: when did you last sit in complete stillness, no screen, no task, no noise, and let the real questions come and not run? If the honest answer is you cannot remember, then you have found the leash. And a leash you can see is a leash you can begin to take off. And here is the final turn, the thing underneath the thing. The reason the silence is unbearable is not really the boredom. It is that in the silence you can feel the time moving, and feeling the time move means feeling that it will end, and the fear of the ending is the oldest fear there is. So we fill the days to avoid the silence, to avoid feeling the time, to avoid the one fact we cannot bear, which is that this is finite and shrinking and will one day simply stop. But Camus saw the strange gift buried in that fear. The person who turns and faces it, who lets themselves fully feel that the time is running out, does not become morbid. They become awake. Everything sharpens. The ordinary Tuesday, the cup of coffee, the face of the person across the table, all of it becomes almost unbearably vivid, precisely because it is temporary, precisely because it ends. The fear of death, faced instead of fled, does not darken the life. It is the thing that finally turns the color on. And a person in that state cannot be fully owned, because the leash was always the fear, and they have picked the fear up and looked at it and set it down, and their hands are free now in a way the sleepwalkers around them cannot understand. So what do you actually do with all 9 of these? Because if I stop here, I have handed you despair, and despair is the one thing Camus absolutely refused.
He gives you a third option: not bearing it under noise, which he called one kind of suicide; not collapsing into nothing matters so why try, which he called another. The third option he called revolt, and it is quieter and harder than it sounds. It is not quitting your job and moving to a mountain. It is staying inside the absurd with your eyes open and refusing to hand over the one thing it cannot take unless you give it, which is your awareness that it is happening. Here's what that looks like on a normal Tuesday. 5 moves, and not one of them requires you to blow up your life. First, do the arithmetic once on purpose.
Actually count whose your hours are. Write it down. Not to horrify yourself, but because a life you have measured is a life you can begin to steer, and a life you refuse to look at will be steered by someone else every time. Second, take one block of your good hours back. Not all of them, you have bills, I know. One, a protected morning, a guarded evening, one stretch of the alert version of you given to something you actually chose. It is small, and it is not small, because it shatters the assumption that all the good hours are already spoken for. Third, find the part of you that is not the job and feed it before it starves completely. The empty Sunday you keep filling with tasks, leave one of them unfilled. Sit in it. Let the person under the mask come up for air. He is still in there. He has just not been fed in a very long time. Fourth, and this is the actual heart of what Camus meant, change your relationship to the rock instead of waiting for the mountain to end. You are going to push the boulder regardless. The freedom was never in escaping the pushing. It is in refusing to push it for a reward that is not coming, and instead finding whatever is genuinely there in the pushing itself. The craft of the work done well, the people beside you, the strange, real dignity of doing a hard thing for its own sake. The gods wanted Sisyphus to suffer because the task was pointless. The instant he stops needing it to have a point, they have nothing left to hurt him with. There is a man who lays bricks, and for years he hated it because he was building someone else's wall for someone else's money and it would never be his. And then something shifted. Not in the job did not change at all, but in him. He stopped waiting for the wall to mean something and started paying attention to the brick in his hands. The exact weight of it, the clean line of the mortar, the small real satisfaction of a course laid straight and true. The wall still is not his. The pay did not change, but the 8 hours became his because he stopped renting them out to a future that was never going to pay him back and started living inside them instead. That is not a trick, and it is not positive thinking. It is the whole of it. It is the entire difference between a man the gods have broken and a man they cannot touch, and it happens entirely inside the skull of the person carrying the rock. Fifth, feel the time passing on purpose, even though it aches. This is the one nobody wants. Let yourself truly know that the days are numbered, not as a morbid thought, but as the exact thing that makes this Tuesday actually yours. The person who has faced the ending stops sleepwalking through the middle. Death, looked at directly, is not the enemy of your life. It is the thing that hands your life back to you. Notice what all 5 have in common. Not one of them has quit your job. Not one requires the mountain to vanish. They are all about who you are while you push. Because Camus was never promising a way out of the rock. There is no way out of the rock. He was promising something better than a way out. He was promising a way to be free while still carrying it. Let me bring it back to where we started, because you've been on the mountain this entire time you have been listening. You sold your life. That part is true, and I'm not going to pretend it away. The hours are gone. The alarm is set for tomorrow. The rock is at the bottom of the hill waiting for you in the dark. None of that changed in the last 40 minutes. But one thing can change, and it is the only thing that ever could. Until now, you were pushing with your eyes closed, telling yourself a story about a reward at a top that does not exist, letting the busyness keep you from ever feeling the weight of your own single life. That was the sleep. That was the actual imprisonment, not the work. The sleep. Camus is not offering to take the rock away. He is offering to wake you up while you carry it. And a person who was awake, who has counted the hours and felt the time and stopped waiting for a later that never comes, is doing the exact same job as the sleepwalker beside them and living a completely different life. The gods gave Sisyphus an eternity of pointless labor and were certain it would break him. It did not. Because he looked at the rock and the hill and the whole absurd arrangement, and instead of despair, he chose to own it. His rock, his hill, his one strange life. He would not pretend it was anything other than what it was, and he would not let them have his mind on top of his hours. That same choice is sitting there for you tomorrow morning when the alarm goes off. Same alarm, same rock, a different person carrying it. We must imagine Sisyphus happy. Camus meant it completely, and the fact that it is so hard to believe is the exact measure of how deeply asleep we have all quietly agreed to stay.
I want to be careful here at the end because it would be easy to hear all of this as a soft comfort, a way to feel better about a bad deal, and it is not that. Camus is not telling you the rock is secretly fine. The rock is heavy, the deal is bad, the hours really are gone and they're not coming back. He is telling you something harder and better than comfort. He is telling you that the awareness itself, the clear, open-eyed seeing of exactly what your situation is the one thing no employer and no arrangement and no amount of exhaustion can take from you unless you hand it over. They can have your hours. They cannot have your understanding of what is happening to your hours, unless you agree to sleep. That understanding is small, and it is the only free thing you own. And everything, the whole of your freedom, is built on that one refusal to look away. So here's the last question, the only one that actually matters out of all 9 and everything after. When the alarm goes off tomorrow, are you going to push the rock asleep like you did yesterday, and the day before, and the year before that? Or are you finally going to push it awake? Pick one. Be honest about which one you've been choosing your whole life so far, and tell me why in the comments, because I read every single one.